So this, behind us, if I don't trip and fall walking backwards here, is actually Kelpius Cave, which is a really interesting history for people who track mystical traditions and secret societies in America and things of that nature. Because you can see here, when we kind of come and look here, this is was erected by the Rosicrucian order in America, which is kind of a resurrection or a continuation of Rosicrucian thought that started over in Germany, Tübingen University, with books like The Fama, The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. And you can see it reads here, Johannes Kelpius, PhD, AD 673 to 708, the contented of the God-loving soul, Magister of the first Rosicrucian AMORC colony in America, which arrived in Philadelphia June 24th, 1694, then known as the Monks of the Ridge. Father Kelpius used this cave as a shelter and a sanctum for his meditations, lovingly erected to his memory by the Grand Lodge Rosicrucians AD 1961 in cooperation with the Supreme Grand Lodge AMORC. So this order, there's a hermitage that's not too far away, and is an interesting group of men. The reason I got interested in it is, if you've watched the other videos, is everywhere along the line that I've been tracking my family history has had men who were involved in some types of secret society. So starting in the 1900s, it was Freemasonic lodges in New York, moving up to illuminated symbology on the gravestones, and to the first church founders ending up being members of this community. So Daniel Falckner and Justus Falckner were members of this community before they left to minister to the church over in Zion Lutheran Church in Oldwick, New Jersey. So the question is that a coincidence? Did these continued generations of men follow in these same secretive, hidden kind of traditions of mysticism that are interested in consciousness, expanding consciousness, understanding the secret history and underlying fabric of the universe, the mind of God, the emanations of the One? You can kind of, was that all a coincidence, or did they pass it down like generation to generation, starting with a group like this? That's the big kind of mystery, and that's why I ended up here. But while we're here, I mean, I can show you. This is ultimately, whoops, let's get my finger out of the picture there. This is ultimately the Cave of Kelpius. This is the meditation chamber. It kind of looks like a little bit like a root cellar or a bomb shelter. It's kind of got really cool, like, striated rock here. You can see the old hinges from where the door used to be a long time ago. You can go online and check out pictures of it with the door. If you come in here, you kind of see it's got like a beehive shape to it, an earthen floor. So you could have dug in and stored root vegetables in here, which they grew a lot of vegetables here. They grew medicinal herbs, the healing of your fellow brothers and others in the local community, education of the local children was a big part of what this community did, and it's a big part of what other secret societies or societies like Freemasons are big about as well. And so this would have been a great 2-in-1, you know, vegetables, storage, protection, shelter, quiet, dark, meditation. I wouldn't mind having one of these in my backyard, to be honest with you. But this is kind of where the road led me, for now, to the Cave of Kelpius. I always love coming here when I'm in Philadelphia. So as crazy as this sounds, this entire journey to where I'm sitting right now started when I was about 16. And my mother told me that our family had gotten intertwined with the Illuminati and secret societies of all sorts. And I got curious to see if there was any truth to what she said. And I became hell-bent on unwinding the tangled web of societies and organizations, including the Illuminati and the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians and all of those different groups that have co-entwined histories. And the first generations was easier to kind of figure out. Granddad was still alive. He could tell stories about his grandfather, who was part of the Freemasons in New York City. He was an industrial arts teacher. His brother was involved with not only the Masons, but also the International Order of Odd Fellows. He was a Grand Master of sorts. My grandmother's father was also an immigrant who was involved with the Freemasons down in Florida, specifically the Shriners. And generations beyond that, it required a little bit more digging. I had to find old newspaper articles, go through lodge histories, found a record of a cousin of my grandfather's who, don't hold me to that, it might have been my great-grandfather's cousin, but he was found murdered. He was also a school teacher, which is interesting because I always thought that, people who were involved in these societies were going to be rich and famous and powerful. But one of the cardinal virtues is charity, education, specifically for the poor, the widows' sons, the downtrodden, the people who don't have access, because the belief is that you have to have a strong, informed public, or else society crumbles. You have totalitarian regimes, and the democratic principles don't work. And so to find a path of family members who were all educators was aligned with those types of principles. So that doesn't necessarily prove that they were involved, but coupled with the history and the lodge records. And in the case of this one murdered cousin, who was a school teacher on his way to California, he was discovered on the site with a Masonic ring in his possession. So he either was a Mason himself or had inherited it from his father, who would have been one of my great-grandfathers. So the chain continued up the hill, or at least back into history, the path went. And as I got back to Western New York, and where my family had been one of the early founding families in the Fingerlakes region, if you watch the video on that, you'll see where I was out in the Bethel Cemetery and then uncovered the different headstones, the Wakeman headstone, other families buried in the Smith family plot with the illuminated eye on there. Could be a symbol of divine providence, could be a symbol of illumination. Really tough to tell, but when you start to piece that together with other kind of circumstantial evidence, given the fact that the close friends in that plot were known Freemasons, one of my sixth great-grandfathers, Christopher Smith, was donating land so that churches could be built and schools could be built. Another act of charity and promoting education and religion and belief in God, all elements you'll find in Freemasonry and Rosicrucian thought as well. These are all Christian organizations, not necessarily Christian organizations. You'll find different, obviously, religious beliefs in Freemasonry. You can be Jewish, you can be Muslim. You ultimately have to believe in the idea of one God, a personal God. So in America, you'll find a lot of Christian-aligned Freemasons, but they also, the church pastors, people who were sitting on the board of the church, the Methodist Episcopal Church, they were Freemasons. So generally birds of a feather flock together, especially during times of anti-Masonic sentiment. You kind of know who your friends are. So there's a good likelihood that that generation was also involved in it. So I kept looking up the trail to see if there was any connection upstream to any Illuminati, like my mom had alluded to. And that took me to New Jersey. So if you remember seeing that video of the church there, at Oldwick, Zion Lutheran Church, and you remember seeing one of the first founding members of that church, or the first pastors of that church. You had two brothers there, Daniel Falckner and Justus Falckner, who were part of this community here, the Kelpius community, named after that guy on that stone tablet, Johannes Kelpius. And that's about as close as you're going to get, so far, to connecting these to some type of original Illuminati, because that group has been, as you can see by the pillar, is directly connected to the Rosicrucian order. At least the order in America claims that Johannes was the first founding member of the first Rosicrucian order here. So they came from Europe. They were highly educated. They were looking for a new Atlantis. Another theme you'll find in these secret societies and traditions is kind of this idea of a lost knowledge that existed that is trying to be recaptured. And some of them came from areas where the original Rosicrucian thought began, the universities in Germany that started the movement that became the Rosicrucian order that inspired the Freemasons. So, I don't know. Was my grandfathers and family somehow connected with this? Maybe. It's the best I can say right now. There's a reason these things are secretive. A lot of times they were suppressed and oppressed. You can see it in the anti-Masonic sentiment in the 1830s. You can see it throughout history, where different church organizations have looked to condemn and kill and murder, heretics. So, I don't know. Since recording this video, I've found out even more about these men and their secret John the Baptist-based Christianity from back in the old world, and I've written about it in a 5-part series below.